how do you find the perfect realtor? Well, in today's video, we're going to walk you through the steps that you need to take as a potential buyer, as a potential seller, to find the perfect real estate agent to guide you through that process. We're going to be discussing everything from the importance to finding the right realtor to the questions that you should ask when interviewing real estate agents, along with the top qualities of great real estate agents, along with common mistakes to avoid when trying to find the perfect realtor. So why is it so important that you choose the right real estate agent to start with? Well, the main reason is because this is one of the most important financial decisions you'll make in your entire life. Therefore, you simply don't want to have regrets when going through that process. A great real estate agent is going to be able to guide you through the complex process of buying and or selling a home, not only helping you understand each step along the way, but also trying to make it as stress-free as possible. A great real estate agent is going to be able to negotiate. They're going to have market knowledge. They're also going to be able to solve problems, provide you with some legal and ethical guidance along the way, in addition to giving you peace of mind, knowing that you're in good hands along every step of the process. Now, before you go out and try to find the perfect real estate agent, if you will, understand that perfect is all relative. In some cases, it may be difficult to find someone that checks every single box that you're looking for in a real estate agent. Just like in a home, there might be some give and take on some of the things to be able to get exactly what you need. But before you start that process of trying to find a real estate agent, I think it's really important that you do some of your homework up front. And what I mean by that is you need to make sure that you're actually in the position to be able to buy a home. You need to have your goals in place, knowing exactly what it is that you want in the area that you're trying to accomplish, along with a budget. Now, at the point that you're watching this video, you may have not been pre-approved yet, and that's completely okay. But even though you haven't been pre-approved, you should already have an idea of how much you're willing and able to spend each month on a housing payment. In addition to that, you should have some questions ready, some things that you're interested in knowing about the real estate agent that you're going to be talking to see if they check the boxes that you're looking for in the person that's going to guide you through this process. Now, going back to what I said a moment ago, you may not have been pre-approved at this point in the process, and that's completely okay. You know, some people like to go out and find the real estate agent first and then get pre-approved, and others like to get pre-approved and then go find the real estate agent. So which is it, the chicken or the egg? And here's what I'll say about that. Most of my business is referral. So most of the people contacting me have been referred to me by past clients, by friends, by family members, and many of them, when they get to me, they don't have a mortgage professional. They haven't been pre-approved. So one of the very first things I do is I send them to my mortgage professional to have them pre-approved, just to make sure they're actually in a position to buy a home, because that lender is going to look at their credit, look at their income, look at their debts, and tell them, yes, you're in a position to buy, and this is how much you're pre-approved to. Now, that doesn't mean you have to start there. You might want to talk to me first as the real estate agent, but one of the very first things we're going to do is push you back that way. So here's what I would say. It's okay to start with the mortgage professional and go out and find a real estate agent, but just know both of those really have to happen before you're in a position to go out looking for property. Now, if you're watching this, you don't have a mortgage professional to go through that process, or a real estate agent, and you're kind of looking for referrals, I've created a referral link below of people I know, like, and trust that can guide you through that process, and it'll ultimately help you in finding the perfect real estate agent as well as the perfect mortgage broker. So now that we got some of the basics out of the way of things you need to do before looking for a real estate agent, now I want to talk about the idea of finding that agent. Where do you start? Here's what I would say. I think it's always a really good idea to start with people that you know personally that have had a good experience. Maybe your friends have bought a house, maybe your parents have bought a house, maybe your brother or sister has bought a house. And so I would say start with them. Find out who they worked with and if they had a good experience. A referral is typically the best place to start when going through something like this. You want somebody that has some trust already built in, and a lot of times it can come from somebody that you know. But let's say you don't know anyone through that process and you're not sure where to start. Well, you can go on Google and type in, best agents, top agents here, and what have you. But the problem with that is what you're going to find is you have a lot of websites out there that just have agents that pay to be a part of them. And those websites are going to show up at the top of the page, and they're going to have people that pay to be there. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad agents, but because you pay to be there doesn't necessarily mean you're the best agent either. So that's why I think it's always good to start with a referral, and then you can work backwards and start looking at reviews and having conversations, etc. So with that said, start with referrals, number one. If you don't have a place to start, check that referral link that I mentioned earlier. That'll give you another good place to start. And thirdly, go to Google and start looking at people, look at the reviews, look at the location they're in, read the reviews, not just look at how many stars they have. If they have 80 stars or 100 5-star reviews, go in and read what people have said about them, because a lot of times it'll explain, hey, their strengths. It might also sometimes expose their weaknesses. It'll give you a really good idea of the person that you're going to be talking to. In fact, it might add some additional questions to that interview process once you actually speak to that real estate agent. So with that, check Google reviews. See how many reviews they have. Read the reviews. Go on to Zillow. See how many reviews they have on Zillow. You can go to Yelp. There's a lot of websites out there that have reviews, but you just have to make sure they're authentic, right? That they're not putting the reviews in themselves. And that's going to bring up one of the questions that we're going to talk about when interviewing, the process of actually getting references from past clients that you can talk to confirm that they're actually the agent that you think they are. So that brings us to the questions that you should consider when interviewing your real estate agent, which is exactly what we're going to dive into right after you hit that thumbs up if you find any value in my videos at all. And also feel free to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on everything real estate, housing, and finance related by hitting the subscribe button below. So one of the very first questions I like to recommend people start with is ask the real estate agent how long they have been in the business. How long have they been selling real estate? How long have they been working as a team, a buyer's agent, whatever it is that they say they are, because this is going to give you a really good idea not only of their experience but also their expertise. If you're talking to a real estate agent that's been in the business for 1 or 2 years, they might be really nice and they might know some stuff, but there's no chance they know as much as the real estate agent that's been doing it for 20, 25 years. But when it comes to experience, that may or may not matter to you, but understand someone with significantly more experience is likely a more knowledgeable real estate agent across the board. And with that, you want to ask them about their experience in the local market. If you're looking, say, in Huntington Beach, where I'm located, and you want to buy in Huntington Beach, well, if that agent is based in northern San Diego, for example, chances are they're not an expert here in Huntington Beach. You want to find somebody that knows the local market. Now with that, they don't necessarily have to be in Huntington Beach, but you want somebody with some experience of selling in the market that can tell you about the different areas, that can tell you about the schools, that can tell you about all the differences that will ultimately impact your decision in the home buying process. And that agent should be able to back it up with showing you some sales that they've done in that location, how many they've sold in the last 6 months, in the last year, in the last couple of years in the market that you're looking at. You might also ask them how many clients they're currently working with, if they're a team, if they hire you, do they get you or do they get someone else? Along with asking things like, do you specialize in a certain type of property? There are some agents out there that are luxury agents that only deal with high-end real estate and don't really deal with smaller condos. And on the other side, you might have people that deal with the smaller end condos but don't deal with luxury real estate. So you want to make sure the person you're hiring does the type of real estate that you're interested in actually purchasing. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned asking for references. Ask them from buyers. If you're a buyer and you're contacting or trying to find a real estate agent, ask them for other buyers that you've recently closed. And don't necessarily let them cherry pick the ones that they send to you. Get a list of the transactions that they've done, and you go through and handpick a couple of people that you want to talk to. They should be more than willing to provide you with that information so that you can call and have a conversation. On top of that, you might ask them if they do any additional education. Did they have any other designations when it comes to real estate? And the reason I ask that is because the barrier to entry to be a real estate agent is very, very low. In fact, pretty much anyone can qualify to be a real estate agent. And that's where most people stop. They don't go any further and get any additional education or do any other designations. They just stop at being a real estate agent and don't try to become better at their trade. So find somebody that takes their job serious, somebody that's full-time. That's a question I should have started with. Are you full-time or part-time? Don't hire a part-time agent if you're looking for a real professional to guide you through that process. You need a full-time agent that does this all the time, because this is how they make their money. They're going to take you serious. They're going to provide you with another level of service that a part-time agent that simply isn't going to be able to give to you. And another thing you might want to bring up in a market at the moment with low inventory, you might ask them how they plan on trying to generate properties for you. Do they have any different strategies? The same for selling a property. If you're in a market right now where things are slow, property properties aren't moving, what are you going to do as my real estate agent to help me get my property sold that maybe others aren't going to do? What kind of plan do you have? Do you have a marketing plan to help me sell? Do you have a plan to help me buy? And on top of that, they should explain the full process to you, what it looks like to buy a home from A to Z, as well as being able to sell a home if that's what you're looking for. But either way, what I'm getting at here is you should be able to ask that agent more or less any question that you have, and they should be able to respond back immediately with an answer. If it's something they need to respond back with tomorrow or take their time in responding, then chances are they're probably not the right agent. And the last thing I want to talk about here with regards to questions to ask is ask about how they plan to communicate. How do they plan on updating you through the process? What I often see or hear people responding to me is, hey, I hired this agent. They were exactly what I wanted up front, but once we got under contract or once we started looking for property and we signed the buyer broker agreement, they just simply haven't gotten back in touch with me. I email them, I call them, there's absolutely no response. So you want to make sure you clarify up front how you're going to communicate. Is it by text? Is it by phone call? Is it by email? How often are you going to get updates? What happens if you don't follow through on those updates? Can the buyer or the seller cancel the contract? Because that needs to be built into the original contract when you're going through the process. At the end of the day, you need a way out as a buyer or a seller if that agent isn't performing. And that's why me as a real estate agent, I tell buyers and sellers up front, hey, if we get into the process and you sign a contract with me to list your house or I'm helping you buy a house and you simply don't want to work with me for one reason or another, just call and tell me and we'll part ways. I don't want someone to feel forced into having to work with me just because they signed a document or because they feel like they need to. I want them to work with me because they feel like I'm doing a good job and I'm the best fit for them. And that's exactly what you're looking for in the person that you're looking to hire to help you buy or sell real estate. Now with that, there are a couple of different types of real estate agents out there. There are full-time real estate agents and there are part-time real estate agents. As I mentioned earlier, you need to be going with a full-time agent, someone that has experience, has expertise, and does this full-time. On top of that, there are single agents and there are agents that are part of larger teams. When it comes to the larger teams, something you need to consider, a lot of times if you think you're hiring the head of that team, then you could actually be mistaken. You're likely getting someone under their umbrella, whether it's a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, to help guide you through that process. Rarely are you getting the person at the top. Now on the single agent side, I'm a single agent myself, but I do have a buyer's agent that works with me and someone that handles the paperwork and takes care of all of that. So typically when you hire me, you get me, but there are times when I'm busy and I'm showing another property or I'm doing something else and I can't necessarily get to an appointment to show you property. Therefore, I might have her show you the property, but at the end of the day, I'm still the person you're working with. I'm still the one negotiating. I'm still the one writing the contracts. I'm doing all the legwork. I just have someone helping me through that process. So you just need to understand when you're going through that interview process and you're asking questions, what type of agent are you working with? What type of service are you going to get? What is that agent going to do versus when are they going to hand you off? And who is going to be communicating with you? Who's going to be doing the negotiating and all the legwork through the process? Because at the end of the day, that can determine what type of deal you get when everything is actually negotiated. But now I want to talk about the top qualities of a great real estate agent. Now understand, this is all relative. Top qualities for you might be different than the top qualities for the next person. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're starting this process, you might want to make a list of what you're looking for in the person that you're hiring. That way, when you're going through the interview process, you can kind of check boxes just to make sure that person fits the mold. And here's what I'll say. I'm a great real estate agent, but I'm not a great real estate agent for every person out there. My personality isn't going to fit every buyer and every seller's checklist in what they're looking for in a professional. And I'm transparent about that because I know that different personalities feed different people. I communicate in a different way than someone else might communicate. In fact, I'm really direct through the process. If you're looking for a top negotiator, someone that knows their stuff, knows market stats, can tell you everything that you need to know, super detail oriented, I'm your guy. But if you're looking for an empathetic, emotional shoulder to lean on, then I might not be the best fit through that process. I am emotional, I have empathy, I just don't show it the same way other people do. And I often see buyers and their agents hugging and doing all this stuff, and that's great. I can be that guy, but that's not who I am most of the time. So you just need to understand who you're hiring. Just because your agent isn't doing those things doesn't necessarily mean they're not a great agent. And just because they are doing those things doesn't necessarily mean they are a great agent. So just understand when you're going through the process, you know exactly what you're getting. Now with that, you want somebody that that has a great reputation. Checking online reviews, calling around, asking people will definitely give you a good gauge of who that person is. On top of that, you want somebody that has expertise, that has experience in the process, that's been selling real estate through a couple of different markets. We're in a crazy housing market at the moment where our prices are high, interest rates are high, housing affordability is low, and not a lot of people have been in this market, but you want somebody that's been through the crash. They've been through good times, they've been through bad times, and they're still here, because that shows you that they're not only a real estate agent, but they're someone that's doing this for a career and they take their job seriously. And as I mentioned earlier, you want somebody with market knowledge, somebody that knows the market that you're looking in, negotiation skills, not just a yes man or a yes ma'am, if you will. You want somebody that's not going to say yes to everything you ask, somebody that's going to push you back a little bit, just to challenge you to make sure in some ways that that's exactly what you want. Are you sure that that's what you want? Is that sure how you want to do it? Or should we approach it this way? Think of things outside of the box in some circumstances, because a lot of real estate agents will just agree with whatever you say. And in some cases, maybe that's what you want. But in other cases, maybe it's not what you want. I'm the kind of agent, when we're walking through a property, I'm telling you up front, hey, I'm going to nitpick this property. I'm going to show you all the things that you're probably not going to notice. And the reason I do that is because people buy emotionally and they justify logically. So when they walk through a home, when it's furnished and there's all the pretty furniture in there, they're just looking at the bigger picture, if you will. Can their family live there? The floor plan, that sort of thing. On the other hand, I'm looking at the baseboards, I'm looking at the floor, I'm looking at the corners, the crevices, everything, just to make sure corners weren't cut and things were done properly. And I want to point those out, because a lot of times buyers don't see that stuff until they move in. So I'm trying to make you aware of as much as possible, so when you move in, you got exactly what you thought you got when you purchased that home. And along with that comes honesty, integrity, capability, all of those things that we've talked about earlier. You want someone with a good reputation, someone that other agents respect and want to do business with. If you're the most disliked agent in town and nobody wants to do business with you, that's going to affect the buyer or the seller that you're helping through that process. So you want to make sure they have a good reputation, and you can ask other real estate agents. I have people all the time. I know a lot of real estate agents. I've been doing this 20 years. I have friends say, hey, I'm using this agent. I'm like, hey, great agent. They really, really good job, that sort of thing. Like, that's the kind of reputation you need in this business. And lastly, you need somebody that's available, right? If they're not available, they have someone that is available to guide you through the process, because when you're out looking at homes, you're trying to make offers, you're trying to do different things, you need somebody that can work with your timeline. Now, that doesn't mean that person needs to drop whatever they're doing to jump on to show you property, because that's not realistic. You need somebody that has boundaries, right? I have 3 kids. To me, sports come before anything else, and then I plan everything else around that. But I respect that in other people, right? I'm still going to get you what you need by getting other people to facilitate in areas. And so you need somebody that can give you the availability that you're looking for, and also understands that time is important in the process. And lastly, I'm going to run down some common mistakes that people make when choosing their real estate agent. And the first one, like I said earlier, is going with the yes man or the yes ma'am, if you will, the person that just says yes to everything just to get your business. Hey, can you sell my house for $1.5 million just because it's $1 million? No, I cannot. And I'm going to tell you up front why I cannot. I'm going to show you why that's not feasible. That's the person you need on both the buy and the sell side. Someone that's willing to stand up, not for confrontation reasons, but just to tell you, hey, this is why it is the way it is. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not willing to help you, but I'm explaining to you why we can't do business the way that you originally asked. That's the person that you need. On top of that, going with the cousin or the person that just got their real estate license because you want to help them. I'm all about helping people, but here's the thing. You're in a professional's market at the moment. You need a professional guiding you through that process. Someone that knows the market, can negotiate, and do all the things that we've talked about in this video. On top of that, you want to research and check the agent out that you think you're hiring, look at the reviews, do all the things that we talked about earlier, not just going with them because they were referred. Make sure they are who you think they are, that they do the type of business that you think they do, in addition to going with the first agent that you interview. Sometimes that can work out, sometimes it can't. So just talk to a couple of different people, get a feel for their communication style, who they are, their experience, all of those things, just to make sure you're hiring the right person. And lastly, going with the agent based on commission. Some agents out there will cut their commission just to do business. Other agents out there work for a company that will give you a kickback to do business with them, right? They'll contribute to your closing costs, that sort of thing. What I can tell you is agents that are willing to kick in their commission, agents that work for low commission rates and their companies kick back, they're working for these companies because they typically can't generate enough business on their own. So they're going to a company that feeds them business so that they can continue to make a living. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I would say is most of the professionals out there in the market, the ones that are doing the big business, the ones that you typically want to work with, aren't working with those companies. They're professionals in the market that do this full time and typically aren't the ones cutting commission. So just because somebody's cutting a commission doesn't mean they're a bad agent, but you need to walk through that process. Why are they cutting that commission? And did they cut that commission before you even negotiated with them? Or when you were in the negotiation process, did they just fold? Because if they're willing to fold for their commission immediately, are they also willing to fold when it comes to negotiating price, negotiating repairs, and negotiating everything else on your behalf? You need an agent that's willing to stand up for what they believe, whether it's their commission, whether it's the price that you're buying the home at, or the repairs. You need somebody that's negotiating on your behalf. So what I'll say is that you have a lot of different options when it comes to choosing a real estate agent. Your preferences might be different from the next person's preferences, so just make sure, kind of have your list. You do the things that we talked about in this video because this is a very, very large transaction, and ultimately you need to work with somebody that you know, you like, and ultimately that you can trust.